matches to begin. A thousand banners waving in the sky. Here comes our Lazio, the eagle starts to fly.
The eagle didn't fly tonight, I can say. It's very hard to be here today, but we do a podcast after every single match, and we couldn't skip today. That is the derby. Unfortunately, it wasn't the result we were all hoping for, and probably this was. I'm talking especially to Alistair McKenzie, that is just outside the Stadio Olimpico. Probably this was the best chance for Lazio, because I think in the last years, Roma weren't as bad as they were today. But again, Lazio didn't manage to win a derby that saw Lazio very favourite.
Yep. It's a good place to start. I think that picks up pretty nicely on the kind of report I've just filed on this game. Is basically discusses this about Lazio, which is that this team's just not showing up on the big occasions. And it's one thing when it's Napoli and Juventus, which were, forgivable games, because it's the start of the season. You're talking about two teams who were head and shoulders above the rest last year. But it's another thing when you're talking about a team, because trust me, this team's been a bit of a disaster all season long so far. Whereas Lazio have really shown all the right characteristics that they were heading in the direction to get a derby win, by which I mean the determination, the winning mentality, the ability to see out games like they did against Udinese on Wednesday. And then it gets to the day and a different team turns up. And that's hugely frustrating to see as a fan, because there's, in my mind now, no doubt that there's a problem with this team when it comes to playing in the big games, whether it's belief that they can win it or whether it's just a mental problem. I don't know.
Yeah, one thing I just tweeted in Italian is I heard some of Lazio fans say that Di Francesco outplayed Simone Inzaghi. I absolutely am not convinced. I think Lazio was tactically better than Di Francesco, and we saw it in the first 20 minutes. In the first 20 minutes, Lazio was playing much better than Roma, who didn't have a chance, wasn't able to get out. Simply, at a certain point, Roma started playing these long balls from the defense or from the keeper directly to Dzeko. So, bypassing the midfield. And Lazio starts struggling there. But there is when you have to fight for the ball, right? You have to fight, you have to compete for every tackle, and you have to run, you have to give everything you got. And it's not only your skill, it's the willing to succeed. And I didn't see that from the Lazio player. And in the derby, that's why you win. You play, you give everything you have.
Yeah, and that's no secret. That's something that should be obvious. It should be drilled into the players by now. And there's enough players in that team who've played in derbies before that they should recognise what it takes. There's still a fair number of players in that team that will have been in the team when we beat them 3-1 at the second derby season before last. But yeah, I mean, it's the worrying thing, and something that I've just been seeing Inzaghi talking to the press, and he only took 2 questions because he's lost his voice. He'd lost his voice in the last 10 minutes of the Udinese game on Wednesday, and now it's almost completely gone. But he was basically saying that, that it's these lapses of concentration. He pointed out the fact that all 3 of the goals Lazio conceded today were from dead balls. First was an Olsen free kick. Dzeko gets the knock on, and then it's complete chaos. It's easy. Second, Kolarov. I'm sure we'll get around to talking about that goal. And then the third one, header from across. And I don't think Roma outplayed Lazio on the pitch at all today, but Inzaghi also picked up on the point that this is a Roma team that wasn't playing as much football as he's used to. They were a lot happier to be compact and, like you say, hit the long balls and be well organised. But that's almost everything Lazio weren't in this game.
Yes, and one thing, you scored like Immobile did and you're 1-1, another team would have been pushing and pressing Roma in their box. Instead, immediately, Roma had another great chances, and the free kick comes from a foul from Badel. That if he didn't make that tackle, that free kick, Dzeko was going in. Pellegrini was going on his own in front of Strakosha, so he had to make that tackle. But again, big teams, they score like that after Roma dominated in the second half. The match should be over. It should be only Lazio. Instead, Lazio disappeared again. It's not playing well. It's really the mentality, the willingness. I thought, at time it looked like it was a friendly match for Milinkovic-Savic today. So that's the thing that scares me more.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm a bit wary of picking up players like Milinkovic-Savic for that, because he just has quite a languid way of playing the game anyway, and I think that's just part of the way he holds himself and the manner that he does run in. I don't think it's necessarily something that shows a lack of desire or anything like that. But yeah, I think, like you say, you need to display different characteristics to win a derby, and the team can be a bit naive at times because they like to play nice football, and the first half was a great example of that, because Lazio were playing some really nice stuff and were absolutely determined to play out from the back, keep up on the ground. Everyone was getting a bit nervous. I mean, when Strakosha had the ball at his feet, the entire Lazio end was basically screaming at him to get rid of it. But sometimes you need to adapt to the situation, and I think I said to you at half-time that actually Lazio, by doing what they were doing, were playing into Roma's hands, and Roma's greatest weapons were basically the speed they've got down the wings, and we were just leaving these huge spaces down the wings that they could just exploit. So, yeah, I do think there's a bit of naivety sometimes in these games as well.
I think that, as I was saying, in the first 20 minutes, Lazio played better, and Luis Alberto had two great chances to score, and he missed both of them. And there, suddenly after, Dzeko had a big chance and Strakosha made a great save, and there the match changed. It felt like Lazio suddenly realized, oh my God, we can lose this match, I'm scared, and stop playing.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I don't know. I mean, I think that Inzaghi was right. The one thing I was impressed with Inzaghi, when just going back to what you were saying about the tactical aspect of the match, was that he was quite proactive and more proactive than we're used to seeing in terms of changing things. When he made a double substitution only about 5 minutes into the second half and changed the formation of the team, I think that was quite encouraging to see. He was actually willing to recognise what the problems were and address them, and that's something he sometimes has been criticised for not doing quickly enough. So in that regard, I do think it kind of worked. And yeah, in the press conference just now as well, he was asked about the Badel-Lucas partnership, and he did say that he's very happy with it, and he thinks they deserve praise, and that they were responsible for or at least they played a big part in the goal that Lazio got back as well. So I don't know what your thoughts about that are. Do you think that, how do you think they played together for a start today?
Well, I don't know if they played well because Luis Alberto wasn't there anymore, or they played well because they fit well together. I thought, and we said this a lot of time, I'm curious to see this type of formation, right? Leiva and Badel playing, and with Milinkovic-Savic playing like trequartista instead of Luis Alberto. I thought Luis Alberto had a terrible match. He was, I wouldn't say by far, because I thought even Marusic was awful. But yeah, those two chances changed the match for me, in my opinion. And he never showed any glimpse of his talent. I don't know what's happening to this player, but seeing how Correa and Caicedo are playing, I think it's time for Inzaghi to make the call and bench him for a little bit. Talking about Badel and Leiva, again, as I was saying, Roma always tried to bypass the midfield because they were Lazio was much better there, I thought they played well. Again, Leiva, it's a leader. I thought Leiva was the only one who was playing as expected. The in the free kick that brought to the Zego goal, again, midfield was a little bit surprised, and Badel had to make that tackle, and I thought there was a miscommunication, a problem there.
Yeah, just to pick up on what you're saying about Alberto, I think that I think this almost has to be a turning point, this match, because all too often, part of the reason for the success over the last week has been the fact that Inzaghi's rotated the squad and tried out different things that have worked. Firstly, Caicedo having a couple of good games, and then Correa making an impact as well. So the thing is, Inzaghi knows what his favourite team is, and we could have written, with the exception of Radu being out, we could have written that team down, 2 weeks ago that he picked today, and it wouldn't have been any surprise. But it comes across now as just being a bit too stale and predictable. And Alberto's not playing well, who connects the defence to the attack. And when Alberto's not playing well, the whole thing kind of falls apart. So in my mind, it's the time has come now for him to kind of commit to either changing the formation to try and help out Alberto to stop him getting so swamped, or swap him out. But I don't think we can continue playing in the big games like this, because I think it's easy enough for the smaller teams to work out how we're going to play. So for the big teams, I think it doesn't require an awful lot of analysis to kind of work out how to stop Lazio in that shape, because we've been doing it for too long.
One thing is, for example, Inzaghi was very good. He blocked De Rossi and Sonsi. Roma wasn't able to play ball on the ground and try to play football. So I thought Inzaghi was good there. Talking about Luis Alberto, there's another problem that I was noticing. I don't know, guys, if you noticed how many times Lazio had to pass the ball to Strakosha. I think if it wasn't the world record, I think it was one of the match where Strakosha had to kick the ball more often. And if you notice, all Roma players were close to Milinkovic-Savic because they knew where the ball was going all the time. And the other fact is, no Lazio players were moving, trying to create space. And this is another problem. If you don't move to create space for the other one, then it's going to be really easy for the defense to stop you. And that's one of the problems Lazio faced today. No one was moving. Nobody.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that in terms of the match as a whole. I think that's kind of how it went as the game went on. But I actually thought the start of the game, I thought this looks really encouraging. And it's worth remembering that Lazio did start the game pretty brightly and were controlling possession, where Marisic was doing really well, getting forward for a change and creating chances on the right-hand side. Luis Felipe started the game really well.
Yeah, I'm talking after the 20 minutes.
Yeah, but this is the thing. We've seen that before this season, and in the Napoli game and the Juventus game, there were spells where Lazio were very confident and playing some very nice football. But the problem is that those spells, they're games always ebb and flow. You have to expect that. It's very rare that you'll go 90 minutes of being that dominant. But Lazio have to make sure that in those periods of games, they're making the most of them. And that's the problem I've got at the moment, is that in any of these games,